You have to be thoughtful about what advice you give. I can't give advice to people who want to start something on their own because I didn't start anything on my own. I went up to Cambridge and I had not done any maths in my life. In RBI, there is the governor. Then there is God. Then there are deputy. Governor outranks God. The RBI runs in the name of the governor. The governor got to know me, which was a unique experience. I was so junior at that stage.
How did it happen?
And we used to have cyclo-style sheets which used to give you your job. And one of the bullet points was manage India's gold reserves. So I had asked my boss, what does manage India's gold reserves mean? He said, once or twice a year you can go to Nagpur and see that the gold is all there. You have to do nothing there. On AI, Roy Amara back in 1960 had said, the impact of technology is always overestimated in the short term and underestimated in the long term.
As a consultant, you have to come and change their way, change their systems, change their way of thinking. How do you do that for a country?
Hi everyone, I'm your host Shivank and we are part of the 01 Network by Zerodha. Together, we intend to bring you insights from the top thinkers in the field of entrepreneurship, technology and investing.
This will be watched by a lot of young folks who are in their college who want to start something of their own and also are starting their careers.
Do they want to start their careers or they want to start something on their own?
So the audience is a mix of both.
Yeah, see, I can't give advice to people who want to start something on their own because I didn't start anything on my own. So I'd be fraudulent in telling people how to start something on their own. I can give you theoretical advice on that, but it's not really, it's not something that I have personally experienced. I can, of course. And so you have to be thoughtful about what advice you give. And I think I have found people who want to start something on their own. I spent 3 weeks, I think, in 2018 on the West Coast in the US, just meeting startups and investors and some academics. And I found that there were two types. There were the flippers and the change the world guys. There were a set of people who wanted to have on their resume that they are trying to start something, they fail, and they were just hoping to create enough value that they could sell it to somebody. And then there were the other people who had an idea which they felt would change the world. And so they were both kinds. And then there were those who were going B2C, where the chances of success were like 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000. And then there were those going B2B, who were older people, who had experience, where the chance of success was higher. Because they knew their industry, they understood where the gap was, and they were trying to fix that gap. So that's what I know about the startup world, but I don't know that much more.
Can we do this in a manner of storytelling where we cover certain types of stories from your life and then we get the insights? Because when we storytelling karte na,
sure,
young people are able to relate most with the story.
Yeah.
So let's just imagine that Harvard Business School is making a case study on you. What are some turnaround points, strategic decisions that you made in life? Which were the highlights which should be the part of that skill? That just context. Let's do it that way.
So, I grew up in Bihar in the time, this is 81, much before reforms in India. If you see the movies at that time, Anand and all these movies, they were all about people being unemployed and no one being able to get a job. So in Bihar, you don't join the IAS. You become an IAS, so you become twice born. In a sense, you'd never really joined that company. And so, I did history because history was a good subject for the IAS. And I was going to do political science in my MA because that used to be a good subject. And then political science results were bad. in 80 and 81. So I dropped it, I did history. And then I had to do a second subject, so I did sociology. But sociology, I didn't do an MA in sociology because I went to the class and there were only girls. And I said, oh my God, if I join a class with only girls, this is before diversity. Everyone will think I'm a loser, So I didn't join that. I did an MA in history. And I studied sociology on my own, for the UPSC. And in fact, my marks in sociology, in history, I had topped the university. I had come second in the university. I got very poor marks. I got 33% in history in the IAS, and I got 70% in sociology. So I got called for the interview because of sociology, not because of history. And then my interview went fine, but I got into the railways. And at that stage, by accident, sheer, pure accident, one of my friends, who later became Director General of Police in UP, said, RBI ke liye baithna. And hum log sab, we sat for the RBI exam. And I got in. None of the other guys got in. And so then I had this choice of RBI and railways. And RBI was only big cities where you would be posted. And it was double the salary. It used to pay 2,320 rupees. Railways used to pay 1,276 rupees a month. And I had, the railway thing came with a ticket, first class ticket, and I was being posted to Allahabad. And in RBI, I was being posted to Calcutta. So I said, chalo, let's join RBI. It sounds better. After I joined RBI, I felt like a bit of a fraud because I had done history. And I said, I should know something about economics. And so I started applying to American universities to do agricultural economics because that time agriculture was hot. NABARD was being started. And so one of my friends, by sheer accident, sent me a form to apply for the INLAC scholarship. And I was in Calcutta, it was not suitable, so I was not planning to fill that form. But my brother-in-law, whom I was staying with in Calcutta, said, you've just become different, you should fill it up. So I said, but how will it get to Delhi and all that? He said, I'll get it delivered. So I wrote my application for the INLAC scholarship. And then I got called for an interview. And then I got called for a second interview and I got the scholarship. And so I went to Cambridge. And each of the times, the INLAC scholarship was created by Indu Shivdasani in honor of himself and his wife. So Indu Lakshmi was his wife's name. So INLAC. And so his son-in-law then used to do the interviews also. So during the first round interview that was taking place, he came in and he asked the interviewer, who was Omkar Goswami, is this guy bright? So, he came and asked me, are you bright? So I said, you have hired this guy to find out, ask him. Why are you asking me? So he asked Omkar. So Omkar said, yeah, he seems to be a bright guy. So he said, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do economics? I said, because I'm doing history. I've done history and I'm working in a central bank. It seems a bit odd. So then I got called for the final interview. And then there was an interview where they asked me, why do you want to study economics? I told them the same thing, that I want to understand this. So they said, what do you do? I said, I make policy. So there were two secretary governments of India. They said, you are 1 year into RBI, you make policy. I said, sir, it's fascinating because I write the notes and everyone just initials. So basically I make policy. So they all had a big laugh and I think I got the scholarship, So then I went up to Cambridge and I had not done any maths in my life. So all the lecture notes were these equations. And there were these squiggly lines of calculus which I didn't understand. So I had to start learning calculus at the same time. So the first year in Cambridge was nightmarish. I almost had a nervous breakdown. Somehow I managed to see that through. And then so in the second year, when I felt more settled, it was quite something. And I feel one of the I think Cambridge taught me how to think. It taught me resilience because I really struggled. I can't imagine how much I struggled. And then in the second year, I started to settle in. And then I did really well, And so I hated my time in Cambridge. I have no fond memories of Cambridge. But it was a very rigorous process and I learned. And so then I came back to India, primarily because I was dating somebody and I wanted to get married to her.
Is she your wife?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I didn't go off to... at that stage, I had thought of applying for a PhD, but I didn't. So I came back to RBI. And then that was a fascinating period for me in RBI because I got posted to Mumbai and I spent 2 years with a person, 3 years working with Mr. Bagai, who was just the most wonderful mentor you could ever have. And then I got posted to Department of External Investments at a time when India's balance of payment crisis happened in 1990. And we used to have cyclo-style sheets which used to give you your job. And one of the bullet points was manage India's gold reserves. So I had asked my boss, what does manage India's gold reserves mean? He said, once or twice a year you can go to Nagpur and see that the gold is all there. You have to do nothing there. And then suddenly gold was all we had. So managing gold became a very important government initiative. And then we had the most dynamic governor, Mr. Venkataraman, who, picked me up and, we worked for 2 years on the gold bank and gold bonds and stuff. And so I got to know him. And in RBI, there is the governor. Then there is God. Then there are deputy. Governor outranks God in RBI. Then there are deputy governors. Then everyone else. It doesn't really matter. So, and I got to know the governor. And I was a janitor. That level. So when you get to know the governor, I didn't get to know. Everyone knows the governor. The governor got to know me, which was a unique experience. I was so junior at that stage.
How did it happen?
You see, I had applied for another scholarship called the Diamond Jubilee Scholarship, which was given by the Indian Institute of Bankers. So again, some friend sent me this form. I was sitting in Patna, so I filled it in. And, 600 people had applied. One person gets it. By sheer good luck, I got that damn scholarship. I don't know why. And I had said, I'll study the gold market. But that scholarship, which was $13,500 US, the most money I had touched in my life, was given by the governor. So the governor gave it to me, and I gave you were asked to give a 3 to 4 minute speech. So he liked the speech I gave. And then I was from RBI, and he was the governor of RBI. So when this crisis happened, he said, I distinctly remember giving a scholarship to a Patna boy. He forgot my name, who studied the gold market. Get him. So RBI was looking for this Patna boy who had studied the gold market. And then in RBI Patna, they felt that maybe I got the Diamond Jubilee. So they were trying to find out who's this Patna boy whom the governor is referring to. And then I was sent the Patna manager at that time, the regional director told me, I don't know, Sinha, you've been called by governor. I think things should work out okay. Because no one was called, they only thought bad things would happen. So then I went and I gave the report. My report was presented to the governor and the deputy governors. And then he said, okay, you'll spend time here and create a gold bank. And then we were part of a gold bank cell. And then we sent the gold to UBS, Switzerland and all that. So it was a time where I actually got to meet the governor, present to him and stuff. And he had remembered that he told me that this report must come out by 22nd February. And I need 2 paragraphs to go into the budget. And if it doesn't come out on 22nd February, don't bother, because then we'll miss the budget. So we worked, 20 hours a day for whatever 3 weeks to put that together. And then he got to know me and he started saying, you should be posted to Bombay. And I didn't want to be posted to Bombay because the governor would come and go and then RBI would say your transfer to Patna didn't really happen. So then they'll transfer me again. So I was here, and then RBI used to send people for 1 year for a Golden Jubilee scholarship. So I had got that. And I had been applying for PhDs. And then as it happened, I got admission in Harvard and Princeton. And so I was being sent for a year. So I went to the governor and I said, sir, I want to actually apply for the PhD and not take the RBI scholarship. So he said, Sinha, I was sending you on a 1-year boondoggle to the US. But if you want to display your inadequacies to the rest of the world, you're welcome to do the PhD. And it's a matter of keeping a lien on RBI. I'm sure my office will help. So that's when I applied for a PhD and I went. But that was a very, very risky decision for me because my wife also worked in RBI. I was also in RBI and we had 2 kids. And I got this scholarship and I went. And so then the plan was that she also applies and gets into Princeton, because then she'll come with the kids. Now, do you imagine and bet on the fact that 2 of us will get into Princeton on full scholarship, because we had no money to be able to cover the kids also. Mm-hmm. I have to say, it was not a sane decision. But it worked out. I mean, she got admission, so she did her MPA. She was there for 2 years. I was there, and then we managed to stay. And then Governor Venkataramanan came to Princeton and told me that now you should leave RBI. And I said, leave RBI? He said, yeah, you'll just manage more people. You should join one of these 4 firms. And he wrote McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Booz. So I said, sir, what do these firms do? He said, doesn't matter. Just get a job in them and work for 2 years. So I just applied and I got in. And then I spent 2 years in the US and then I came to India in 98. So that was a very random set of events that took me into consulting. But it was very risky to have gone to Princeton. Because if my wife had not got in also, then I was not going to spend 4 years there. The kids would have been here. So we'd have had to figure out some other thing. So it was a risky maneuver, but it happened, So all these scholarships, to go to Cambridge, I was on probation in RBI. No one in RBI would be given leave to go on probation to Cambridge. And I came to Bombay to meet the executive director, a gentleman called B.N. Srivastav, who I was sitting outside his office. He came and he said, come, let's go to the toilet. So he went to the toilet. He said, kya problem kya hai tumhara? So I said, sir, he said, let's find out. The file came down and one of the officers said, so we have to reject it because he's on probation. For some reason, he got annoyed. He said, you don't tell me what to do. And then find out how we might make it happen. So then I got leave to go to Cambridge. I mean, these were all random events, why did he feel like giving, and it was not leave. I was given extraordinary leave without pay. But my seniority was kept. So I went to Cambridge, then I came back. Then I went to Princeton again. Similarly, I was given extraordinary leave without pay. To go there. So these were all big chances. Diamond Jubilee, I don't know why I got it. 600 people apply. Okay. It's toss of a coin, किसी को मिल गया, मिल नहीं मिला. So it was just pure blind luck, but it helped.
Before we navigate further, a few questions, sir. How did you meet your wife?
In RBI.
In RBI.
We both started on the same day.
Interesting. And when you say in RBI, God is below the governor, what do you mean by that? Why so?
No, because in RBI, the RBI runs in the name of the governor. So that's just a manner of speaking. It just shows that it's, the deputy governors are all secretary government of India rank. The governor is typically a minister of state. But the amount of autonomy they have, on setting interest rates, very few cabinet ministers have that much autonomy, right? If you think of it, it's not that the finance minister says cut the interest rate or not. It's the governor, and these are very material decisions. It's non-trivial, everyone and all economic theory keeps saying there should be independence for central banks and all that. So if you're setting interest rates, the entire capex cycle in a country runs because of you. So it's a big deal,
So yesterday we were with Rhythm Sir, Morgan Stanley.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that right now just the country benefited from the 20 years of globalization, 30 years of globalization. It was an inflection point in 1992 when it happened, and it was a consequence of the BOP crisis. And you were in RBI when this was happening, sir.
Yeah, so we had 3.5 billion of gold reserves and $800 million of foreign exchange reserve. I'm talking about million. Right now we have $600 billion of reserves. That time we had 3.5 billion of gold, 800 million of foreign exchange reserves. And we were having 2 weeks of imports, with our foreign exchange reserves. And we were waiting to collapse, So it was a tough time. That was a very different India. And then, the IMF, in fact, when Mr. R.N. Malhotra was governor, Mr. P.B. Kulkarni used to be chief officer DIO. So the draft letter to be sent to IMF asking for the $5 billion SDR loan, Kulkarni told me, write a draft. So that time there used to be typing pools, and this was to be confidential. There were no computers. So you handwrite one paragraph. So there were on 10 different floors of RBI, I gave different paragraphs. And these letters were then pinned together because you didn't want this to leak. And then this thing was taken and I gave it to Kulkarni, and then we corrected it. And again I sent the thing, and then we gave it to Malhotra, who took it to the finance minister, who must have then again corrected it and sent it, as a draft to ask for this 5 billion loan. And that's when the discussion started on, what kind of structural adjustment program we'll have to undertake, which prices will free up. Exchange rate was devalued, all interest rates started to get market determined. Only the savings account was fixed. Tariff rates were brought down. We used to have 200% tariffs, 140% tariffs. Then the average was brought down to 35% and being brought down to 15%. So all prices. And there used to be a thing called broadbanding. If you got permission to build a factory with 100 units of output, you couldn't sell 120 units of output. So all that MRTP was removed. So a lot of the stroke of pen measures were done. There were 2 devaluations that were done. So that was a totally different time. It was all happening. And then in 92, just when the first lot had been done, I went off to Princeton. From 92 to 96, I was at Princeton. And then from 96 to 98, I was in Boston. So
2 more things I want to touch upon. You mentioned the government liked your speech, right? What was so fascinating about that?
Governor.
Yeah.
No, I think I used an analogy on gratitude in that speech. And I said, I had done a course on just a summer joint course on Bob Dylan, the singer. And one of the English professors used to do a seminar on Bob Dylan during the holidays. So I had attended it. And one of the things he had told us to explore was how a Bob Dylan song deals with gratitude. So they don't want the gratitude to end when the song ends. So how do you speak about gratitude, in a way that continues to linger even after the song is over? And so I think I mentioned that, that I'd also want my gratitude to linger. Because that was a total random event. Who would imagine you'll get a scholarship like this, And so...
And when your boss said that you're doing nothing apart from managing people and hence you should apply in these 4 things.
That was the governor. He said that, now for the next 10 years, you will just manage more people. While in this kind of a place, you will have to think every day on a new thing. Remember, in 92, there was no consulting in India. None of the firms were in India. So we didn't really know what these firms did, And so, but in Princeton, it was very easy to find out. What it was.
You're mentioning that nobody knew what the firms did. But, they say that if someone has a problem, you have a solution for that. And if some business does not have a problem, you still have a solution for
That's
that.
what Omkar Goswami would say when he would interview me at NDTV and all. But it's okay,
But what are you in the business of, sir?
No, the thing is that if you think of it, if you are running a business, you are really busy. You have no time. Every day there is there's almost a crisis every day. Something or the other requires attention. Your supply chain is broken. Your product has broken, not been good. You're not being able to sell. So somebody needs to step out and say, what should you be doing? And to be able to do that, you need to train yourself to ask questions that business managers don't have time to ask.
What are these questions?
Could we change the model? Could we do something else? Why is your productivity falling? What is somebody else doing which is different from yours? Can you do something with technology which is different? Can you enter some new geographies which are not there? Can you, at a different scale, serve new customers that you couldn't reach out earlier? If you're just running your business, you're too busy. So to be able to actually step aside and think requires that much time and effort. And, it's also, we spend a lot of time doing that. We invest a lot of time in learning, in new trends, like the amount we will spend time on artificial intelligence or on other areas, that are new. A company can't spend that much time or effort or invest in it. And then we have the ability to work in groups of people. Because we go in, there is one thing which is common of BCG around the world. We go to the top universities and hire from the top 20% students in the top universities. So you're really getting a good talent pool of people who are also impatient. So they want to come here, learn things quickly. And so you can create that energy with your clients and, inject, so to speak, catalyze them. Of course, the client has to do all the work. But, to unlock their passion and energy, that's what we do.
Interesting. And this is a topic of interest. You mentioned that you spend time in learning all of these. Have you mentioned that, before you're learning water. Tell us some interesting understanding, some nuance understanding of what have you learned about water. And second thing is how AI, which is top of the town, is going to impact the businesses that we are going into.
See, on AI, Roy Amara back in 1960 had said, the impact of technology is always overestimated in the short term and underestimated in the long term. So AI will have profound impact. What all it will impact, it's too early to tell. Everyone seems to know everything about AI. They don't actually. It will be discovered. The thing is that the cycles of learning are getting compressed. So the world is learning at a faster speed. So earlier, what used to take 100 years, then took 50 years, then took 10 years, then took 5 years, now takes less time. So the speed with which change is happening is accelerating. And people, in 2007, the iPhone was created. I lived my life, when I was in RBI, I had managed to get a phone at my residence. That was a big deal. So I used to write on my visiting card residence telephone number because it was a status symbol. Now everyone has a phone, so communication has got. In 2003, 20 years ago, 3 million people in India had a cell phone. Today, 1 billion people have a cell phone, right? This speed of change didn't happen.
How do we young people understand this, comprehend this?
No, you are living it. You don't need to. You are living it. It's the old people who have to understand that the speed of change has accelerated. What do you have to understand? You are growing up in it. Meaning you are living it. When I look back, say, Jesus Christ, there was no... RBI used to have one computer in 1992. One. And we used to manage foreign exchange reserves. There used to be 2 photocopying machines, on my floor. You had to fill in, you photocopied something. It was like a different era. So, India is also happening in real time. In 2000, India became 480 billion of GDP in 2000. It was like 230 billion or something in 1992. In 2007, it was 1 trillion. 2015, it was 2 trillion. In 2030, it will be 7 trillion. We will add $5 trillion in this decade to GDP. We'll add more than in India to India. This decade, we started at 2.4 trillion. We'll end at 7.2 trillion. So 2 Indias will be added in 10 years. It's difficult. So biggest challenge in India is what? The challenge, the conflict between experience and imagination. Because my experience is for a $1 trillion, $2 trillion economy. And I have to try and imagine a $7 trillion economy. And do I have the courage to do that imagination? How do I imagine that? And how do I bet on my imagination rather than my experience, which is real, which I have actually lived through? So those are some of the challenges that we are facing, right?
We're speaking very casually. Within 20 years, we have moved from a status symbol of having a phone number to the cutting edge iPhone that we use. Imagine we are having this conversation 20 years from now. What kind of...
See, the big issue right now for me in India is that there are 3 basic Indias. There's a Europe, there's an Indonesia, and there's a sub-Saharan Africa. So there are about 50 million Europeans, there are about 500 million Indonesians, and there are about 1 billion sub-Saharan Africans. The discussion for a sub-Saharan African who's living in India is very different from a European. So Bihar, Eastern UP, etc. 110 million kids under 15 are in Bihar, Eastern UP, Jharkhand, Orissa. It's... What is their future? So, that tension. See, for the world, for business in India, just Indonesia and Europe is enough. We don't need sub-Saharan Africa for business. But you will not have a stable country unless you can lift everyone from sub-Saharan Africa into at least Indonesia. And so as we move this journey forward, we will get to 4,000, 5,000 per capita, but we'll need to reach 10,000 per capita and not get stuck in that journey. Otherwise, we'll not be a stable country.
And what can stop us from that?
Oh, many things can stop us. An opportunity is not an outcome.
How you leverage that opportunity is...
Yeah, I mean, just now we have a problem with water. India consumes 1/3 the average water of the world. Now our population will increase and our water, we are under a stress water situation. We can shift into a basic shortage which will create war between states like Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, etc. The water situation is dire and it doesn't get enough attention. So we'll still 60% of our agriculture is dependent on the monsoon, not on irrigation. Our productivity levels are very low. We export water with our crops because you grow rice in Punjab where there is no water. And so the water table is now 500 feet, etc. In Vidarbha, you grow sugarcane. These are water-intense crops. They should be grown in Bihar and UP and places where there is water. You should be growing different crops in these places. But once things get settled, change is very difficult. Because how do you manage the short term? People live in the short term, so making these changes are difficult.
This is very interesting. So these are the problems to solve. If we have to...
No, I think the biggest problems to solve for us is water, is primary education, is adult skilling, is primary health care. These are the core problems for India, right? I mean, if you look at average ages, Africa is 19, India is 29, China is 39 or 40, Europe is 44, 45, Japan is 49, So now think of it. Japan, the population of Japan will shrink from 127 million to 100 million in the next 25 years. China, by 2100, will be half its size. India will be double the size of China in 50 years, 60 years. So these are major trends, right? And we have all these young people, but we have an education system that doesn't deal with them. And so till we fix it. Now, tell me one discussion on education which goes away from teacher training, more schools, right? We have to reimagine education. We totally have to reimagine it. And any such major transformation in a country is very hard.
Without changing the education system?
No. Changing the education system itself is very hard. Because, just think of it. ITES, call centers, all this. ITES pays our oil bills, right? I mean, think of it. Why we have 22 languages? Can we embed, technology and education? So let's choose in every language 10 of the best teachers in maths, 10 of the best teachers in the local vernacular, in English, in history, in chemistry. The best 10, right? In Hindi, in Telugu, in Tamil, in Malayalam, whichever languages. And create regional education hubs where during the day, from 8 to 1, lectures are live broadcast in the language by the best teachers to these schools, where we could get TVs of this size live broadcast and the current teachers in that class becoming monitors. They just make sure that the children are sitting there and you can ask questions. There's nothing to prevent you from asking questions. But it will be live lectures, not taped lectures, live. The student, the teacher is giving you a live lecture. The problem sets are set by that teacher. The tests are done live. Everyone gets their computer. The cost of computer TV is not the problem. It is the change from getting into a structure which is rethinking it. You have passed the 10th standard. We should say you are 15 years old, you should be in this class. But you passed the 5th standard in maths, you've passed the 10th standard in English, you've passed the 8th standard. And that will be your thing. And then at some point, you need to pass one exam. But, you will have individual coaching and you'll be able to do it. So I'm just saying, how do we reimagine this? And then there is another bulk of 250 million, 300 million Indians who need adult education. Because you can't leave them out of it. Then you can do better skilling. Our productivity in agriculture is the lowest in the world. So these are issues which are real. But it's easier to build roads. It's easier to build airports. It's easier to build ports. You can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it. It's harder to understand how many, we have about 1.2 million schools in India, primary schools. China has 1/3 of those number of schools. But much better education. And China fixed water, education and health before it started on its journey. Because by fixing water and irrigation, it increased productivity of agriculture. So it could spare people to go. So I'm saying, but look, you would still prefer to live in India to China because you have a voice, you can speak, you can vote, you can do stuff like that. And so there are trade-offs which come with some of these things. And this kind of fundamental change is hard. It's not easy. These are the challenges we face. We keep getting better, but the speed, we are getting better, but the expectations are moving faster than at the pace at which we are getting better. So the aspirations are completely outpacing the speed of improvement.
This is you're talking, change is hard, sir. In the same way, if change is hard for the country, changes is also hard for business. But
yeah, and also
get it right for business are, they have no time, they're just constantly going after one thing. And as a consultant, you have to come and change their way, in the sense, change their way, change their systems, change their way of thinking. How do you do that for a country? Or for, let's say, education system?
No, the question is, the biggest challenges are of alignment. This is my view. Why should you agree with it? Meaning, why should you agree that this is the right way to teach? The time to get alignment is not straightforward. It's the same in a company. Our motto is to unlock the potential of those who advance the world. Right? When you go to any company, and I always tell our consultants within BCG, I said, when you're going and suggesting change, it's easy. We have to think like a doctor, but feel like a patient. Because when the doctor says, I have to amputate your arm, your arm is going, right? So I have to feel the arm going, even though I feel that is the right answer. That's very hard. And, how do we actually develop enough empathy to understand that? But enough empathy, but the empathy should not convert into sympathy, because then you just start feeling sorry for people and you can't move. But you can't not acknowledge the pain and the change. So, I mean, all of this is what makes life both complicated and interesting.
What are some other things that you coach people on, that you say inside to your mentors, or to your mentees, to the people who are working?
So in BCG, I keep telling people to make learning a habit.
Okay.
How do you learn and how do you make it a habit? And how do you not get satisfied? You have to have hunger to learn. And learning is not just by reading, it is by speaking, it is by listening, it is by writing, it is by speaking, it is by making notes when you are attending sessions. But it's a mindset which has to get deeply embedded. If you can't make learning a habit, then how will you stay current? So when I go for my morning walk, I'm always listening to something or the other. It's not music. I'll be listening to a podcast, or I'll be listening to The Economist, or I'll be listening to some lecture or some speech. Because why waste 45 minutes, in the morning when my brain is fresh? I can listen.
This is our way. You're not teaching two kids. Let's say if this is, watched by 10,000 folks, imagine the power that you are, the leverage that we have. But what are certain podcasts? I just want to have a deep understanding of how are you doing.
So for geopolitics, I really think Fareed Zakaria is spectacular with his Global Public Square. I'll try and listen to the Wreath lectures of BBC. They come out once a year on different topics. I listen to interviews, that David Rubenstein does of leaders, Then if I want to find out about generative AI, for example, I will say, okay, what is Sam Altman saying on this? Let's hear some interviews of that guy. What are the interviews of that Elias guy? What is his issues with it? I don't want to just listen to everyone who is repeating what some of the leaders in the space are saying. Then I would like to listen to the technology secretary, etc. in some countries, what is the government view on it? So I don't make dumb, stupid mistakes. I need to know the important arguments on an issue.
Interesting.
So I try and read The Economist every week. When I subscribe to 7 or 8 newspapers, which I try and finish in half an hour.
What's your favorite newspaper?
So look, I go through newspapers in a certain way. I follow some people and I follow some topics. Okay. And whichever newspaper they come into, it's okay. I write typically in the Hindustan Times, but I write in different papers too.
Interesting.
But it's very important that you stay current, and then you have a perspective. Now the budget will come. I'm sure people will ring me up and ask me, what are your views on the budget? This, that, the other. So you have to be prepared. You can't just go and just be loose about it.
And just let's say for the understanding of budget, who are some people that you learn from, that you follow, that you read?
Oh, I follow a lot of people. Today I read Sajid Chinoy on what he feels should be the budget. There are a bunch of economists I follow. Then there'll be a bunch of business leaders I'll follow. I was talking to the Kotak yesterday and said, what are you looking for? What are you worried about? So you get a sense from different people.
And what is Uday sir worried about?
No, some people will be worried about what the interest rates will be, what the rupee should be, when it should, how should it move forward or not.
Interesting. I think this is a good segue to understand some aspects of leadership from you, sir. Is it true that your leadership style is a function of leadership styles of your good and bad bosses?
Well, it's certainly useful when you try and lead, to look, introspect and see who did you respect and admire and why. If you can identify what is it that people did that you found really valuable. So Mr. Bagai, who was one of my early mentors in RBI, he taught me how to pay a compliment, which has been such an important thing. He said, officer, he used to call me Officer JKS. He said, Officer JKS, today I'm going to give you the best lesson of your life. I'm going to teach you how to pay a compliment.
How do you pay a compliment?
So he said, when you have to pay a compliment, first, you have to study the person carefully. Don't say you're great. That's bullshit. You have to really look and see what is the person really good at. Then, when you have really thought deeply about that, go and tell the person, looking them in the eye, that I really find that you are brilliant at this. When you are paying the other person a compliment, don't try and include yourself. You like me. No. It's about him. It's about her. You are extraordinary in this. If the person tries and brush it aside, don't get deterred. Say, no, I think so. Then you repeat it. Then you say it more publicly. Then you say it behind their back. Then you will have a friend for life. And you will have been honest. So it's very important. He used to, and he always believed that you. I remember once the chairman of one of the banks had come in, and RBI had a lot of power, and Mr. Bagai used to do strange things, like I was a junior officer, but he'd call me and say, sit in the room. And I didn't know why I'm sitting in the room. And I remember once union negotiations were going on, and he called me. So I wanted to not hear, so I was looking out of the window. The moment the union guys left, he said, how did you find the sights outside? Do you think I had called you to look outside my window? This was training. How do these things happen? I said, gosh, I was a bit out of depth. He said, yeah. So, those are how people mentor and teach you. And then he called this chairman, sir. So when we went to see him off to the elevator, I said, sir, you are RBI. Why did you keep addressing him as sir? He said, by calling him sir, I may have made him feel good. I didn't become small. Wisdom comes from people who have been there. And he would always listen very carefully to everyone's pain. And I'd say, oh, you're so soft, etc. He said, soft, hard, we should leave to God. We are not in a position to be soft and hard. Hans Paul, my BCG CEO, would always say, to whom much is given, from them much is expected. So, if you are leading, you have to do more. Otherwise, why take leadership? So, these things help. I don't know what my leadership style is. It's rubbish. I can't, how do I know? People experience it. So, I would be fraudulent in saying this is my leadership style.
That's why I wanted to understand a couple of interesting incidents that happened with your mentor.
See, the thing is that I truly believe no one I lead wants me to be great. They want to be great. So if you can help them become better, they will lift you. And in any case, if you ever want people to be energized, you must have a bigger vision. It shouldn't be about you. It should be about the firm. It should be something that everyone can sign up for. Why should anyone want you to do well? It's not real. Everyone can say, let's make BCG better. Everyone can say, let's make India better. Everyone can say, so if I can get a bunch of passionate people saying, let's fix India's water problem. That's fine. Then they'll be willing to follow me if I take the first steps towards it. But they'll follow me if they want to. That's when it'll be real. So if leaders spend too much time about just thinking about themselves, they have to take themselves out of the equation when they want to lead. If you take yourself out of the equation, you'll take better decisions. But it's hard. It's harder to do than to say. And you should recognize that too.
And before start of the interview, you mentioned that the biggest, case for your success is your ability to take risk.
Yeah, see, success, these terms are loosely used. What is success? I believe success is survival. If I'm still alive, I'm still here. I've not been asked to go, etc. That's success, right? Otherwise you'd be asked to go. What is success for Dhoni? He was there for so many years. You know what success? The longer you last, and the biggest thing is be careful about success, because all of the success you have had is in the past. So it's useless. It's over. You're still living. So don't get too bogged down thinking about past success. Make learning a habit and figure out every day what you have to do for tomorrow. All these, people spend all their time, you are so successful. No, you have more money, that's fine. You have got being able to live, whatever it is. But, fame and success are very different things.
What do you chase? Do you chase fame? Do you chase success?
Fame, you should be very careful of fame. You should keep fame. You should have fame as a friend that you decide ki baap re baap, ye bhari chatu hai, isko duri rakho, aa jayega andar, to it will create chaos, So the moment fame goes to your head, you're in trouble. And I don't know whether you should chase success or fame. You should, if anything, be dogged about whatever you are pursuing, and pursue it in a dogged manner. Don't waste time chasing success, this, that, I don't know what these terms become their own enemy. And then they are used loosely. People say, explain. I remember I am Ahmedabad mein the, 10 saal, 15 saal pehle. Sir, you've become head of India or whatever. What next? I said, I'm 45 years old. I'm too young to die, don't you think? It'll take some time. 40 years. So I don't find some of that, as long as you don't get bogged down in these terms, and in fact convert it into learning and having passion on different issues on which you are taking steps. If you are engaging in an argument, you're engaging in a discussion. Rahul Bajaj was one of these icons India has produced, and I used to he was fond of me. So, I remember once asking him, Chairman, what do you do to relax? And he looked at me, he said, Janmejaya, I like nothing better than to come back after a national conference meeting, having heard your rubbish, in that presentation, and then explain to you why you were wrong. It gives me so much joy, So, आओ मेरे घर में बैठो और तुमको हम समझाएंगे कि how wrong you were. So, he was such an energetic guy. I loved him. He was a brilliant person, icon, true icon.
Interesting. What are you teaching your kids up? What do you often find yourself teaching?
I don't teach my kids. My kids don't learn from me. That's a complete disaster. The parents can, inculcate values in their kids in school. After that, I keep telling everyone, that you go through 3 phases with your kids. The first phase is when you put them to bed. The second phase is when you and the kids go to bed together completing their homework. Then the third phase is when they put you to bed and take the car keys, So that phase has happened with me for some time. So I don't teach my kids anything. They will always tell me all the things I do wrong. So it's okay.
There is one question that I'm really curious about, sir. You have an absolute understanding of businesses, right?
I don't know. Look, these are big terms. Absolute understanding of business. I know some businesses better than others. I know some people better than others. See, there is a brilliant statement which has been made by many people. But, I had read it first with Peter Drucker, so I'll give it to him. He said, the only way to predict the future is to create it. And I must tell you that all this, we shouldn't believe we know the truth. We should be very thoughtful in going rigorously through a discussion and an argument and talk to our clients honestly. I always feel that the best work I do personally is with people I respect. And I know it is their decision. So I never sulk if they don't take my decision, as long as they have heard my perspective. And so they have taken an informed point of view, including my perspective in it. If the other person is taking the decision, it cannot be your decision. So if somebody from BCG is saying, we made the client do this, I really get annoyed with them. That's not true. We help the client arrive at their decisions. And they are well thought out by them, including getting our perspective, sometimes which they accept, sometimes which they don't accept, but at least hopefully they listen with respect. So we have to be thoughtful about these things. I don't want to ever overstate. A CEO is very lonely, is very alone. And then his organization, finds it hard to disagree with him, to give him alternate perspectives. So they want people to come and be able to tell them things, which they can at least reflect on and say, why was this person saying this? So some of my best clients, when we have discussions, there'll be some points they will agree with, some points they'll say, you're right, I'm wrong. I agree with you. Those are the best discussions because you are hopefully working with people equally bright, right? So who's given you the God-given right to be right? You are engaging, and hopefully by that engagement, a better outcome is being achieved.
Because you speak of CEOs, and this is something that I was really curious about, was, one part of your job is also to build relationship with these CEOs, right? To stay in touch, to cultivate relationship. So at some time, so that you can, help them at a particular point. When you are around these folks, let's say there is a room full of CEOs, CXOs, promoters, right? How do you go about, building a relationship and potentially adding some value?
No, you build relationships if you can get trust, if you obtain trust.
Trust is a function of where you come from?
देखो, trust तो एक equation है. Credibility, reliability, intimacy divided by your self-orientation. If the person feels I'm giving you advice because of it's my interest in it, they will not take it seriously. If they believe that I am a person who's reliable, if I say I will send you a glass of water in the morning, it will reach. They'll say, you're a reliable aadmi. If I am credible, and then if, we develop chemistry and intimacy where, the person will say, क्या हुआ कल वो देखे अरे वो, and you know where the person when you see a person and they smile, it's a good start. One shouldn't complicate life, you know. If you dislike a person, you will try and walk this way. If you like a person, you say, yaar, chai peete hain, samosa khate hain. You know what I mean? Like that means he wants to talk to you.
How do you develop them in first meeting?
You never do. 10-year relationship takes 10 years to build. I mean, anyone who says he does it in one meeting is an idiot. Complete raving idiot. You know what I mean? Will you trust anyone in one meeting? Are you kidding me? No way. You have to see repeatedly that the person delivers on what he says he will, then you develop reliability. You know, I mean, you know, these are things which take time. And if people feel you are putting your interest above theirs, you will never develop So in our business, the biggest thing I want consultants to understand is if you consistently put the other person's interest above yours, they will take care of your interest. Because they like people like you around them.
Do you remember your first consulting case?
Oh, yes, I do. I was one of my first consulting. I think my first consulting case was Kodak. You know, when the silver halide, how long will it last? The digital cameras were coming in. So that was in Boston. George Fisher was the CEO. I mean, I was a consultant. I was a lower life than the lowest of the low. It was okay. But I had to look at, I had this, I didn't know Excel very well, and this was such a complex model over so many sheets, and I couldn't sleep at night wondering where there was a glitch in my model. You know. So, yeah, I mean, Bank One, there were some of those original cases.
You know, we always hear this Kodak story. They were not able to adapt to the change of the digital cameras. Were you privy to that situation?
Yeah, we worked on that particular case. We had thought that silver halide will die in 2004. It died earlier than that. This was a case in 96, right? So we had thought 2004. They had 8 years. It was more like 5-6 years. And they used to make 90% of their profits used to come from film. And then, you know, it's easy to tell a company like Kodak, which is an iconic company, that you make paper now and do digital cameras. You know, I mean, like, it's different, right? I mean, you are shifting. So making that kind of shift, the only company that really did that very well for a long time was Nokia. You know, it made those transitions well, but, you know, you need a conglomerate is better to do that than a single structured company.
What will you call your most challenging case where you learned, a lot of things? Yeah, it's not a singular thing, but
yeah, most cases are challenging. I really tell you, you know, every case I take on, I know is important for my client. So, you know, it's like when you ask a surgeon who operates on the heart, they better take your surgery seriously. You will die. You know, meaning, so I hate it. I don't like getting, you know, this is such a large case, this is such a small case. Whenever a guy is hiring me, I have a choice. I can say, I can't do this project for you. If I take on a case, I should treat it as the same respect as any other case I am working on. If I don't, I should not take the case. A बड़ा छोटा केस है, ये है, वो है, वो सब मत लो. कौन तुमको force कर रहा है? But once you take on the case, I tell all my young partners, कि देखो boss, fragmentation is when you become reactive. Our business is about being proactive. If I have so many clients that I start reacting to you, you ask me something, I answer. I'm being a bad consultant to you.
You have to be the first person to tell.
No, I have to be proactive. I have to immerse myself in the person, saying, this guy is sitting here. What should I be telling him? Like the other day, I was sitting and I thought about, I saw something and I said, I made a note. I have to tell that guy. Boss, we dekh rahe the, I feel that this is something we should discuss. Could you do this? Then the person may not do it, but he feels that I'm thinking about the person.
Because you gave the doctor's analogy, my understanding was, please don't tell us about all the cases, because all important cases. Tell us about a complicated surgery that you did. A complicated, successful surgery.
Look, the first case I did in India, or one of early cases, the first two cases I did in India, one was PNB transformation and the other was Stanchard-Grindlay's merger. They were both highly complex. It was so complicated, 5,000 people, you had to get let go of 1,900 people in India in 2001. I mean, there's not a small number, so it was complicated. And PNB, that was a public sector bank in the old form, trying to change that. Oh my God. It was, Kohli was there. He made it happen. Otherwise, gosh, it was not straightforward. And then, you have small victories, and you don't change an organization like that. But the large corporate branches, retail banking, risk management, a bunch of stuff that happened that time. It was quite seminal, so to speak,
We have a last section where we ask a question. You have to answer in one word. 5 seconds each. Can I do that?
Yeah, but I'm very bad at those. So
Let's give it a shot. One compounding habit in your life that has given you maximum ROI.
Learning.
Okay. Tell me, do you have a mentor right now?
Well, mentors I've had mentors, yes. But I've had more mentors in the past than I have now.
What do you call, how did you meet the luckiest person in your life?
I haven't.
Okay. What's on your bucket list? How will the, it's very common question that you have been asked.
See, I don't have I have been very lucky and I'm very gratified that, I must have visited about 50, 60 countries and all that. So this bucket list and all is all Western. My bucket list is finding myself, which I haven't done.
If a young person asks you how to find yourself, what would you say?
I would say find out what gives you energy and what saps your energy.
And what's that for you?
So I like people give me energy. Complex problems give me energy. What saps my energy is cheap politics and, stuff like that.
And so they say you are some of 5 people that you surround yourself with. If you were 22 again, and if you have to surround yourself with 5...
I never had 5. I had more like 50. Meaning I was not a 5 person. I belonged to different groups in Stevens and in other places.
And when you said the best way to predict future is to create one.
To create it.
How can I create future? How can a young person create future?
By committing. Don't imagine what will happen. Make it happen. If you want to fix water, go and say, okay, I'll get tanks improved in the 2 districts around here. All the tanks which have got dried up, I'll try and see whether we can restore them. We will grow trees around them. What will we do? Do something.
This is last question, quick one. I'm doing injustice because it was an entire section in my portfolio of questions. But what's the biggest, because you have written a book on this, what's the biggest reason of conflicts in family businesses? And if you have to solve, what
emotional, soft issues, where people feel hurt. When you have a family with unconditional love and affection, and people feel unjustly treated or hurt, and those hurts don't get resolved.
And how do you solve this?
With sensitivity, if you can.
Thanks a ton, sir.
Chalo.
Genuinely very grateful.